let's rock and roll here. Alright, inside angles. Here you go. This is a video of me right here, cornering mud. That's what I call it. Technique is to get the mud on the corner of the knife so it's going where you want it to go, rather than trying to put it on the flat blade area. It's a simple technique, but you really need to learn it if you're going to be good at finishing. Here's a better view, and this is with a 4-inch knife. I'm going to give it a little mix right here. So I'm going to put that knife, the side of that blade, right in the side, and I'm going to drag it down to the corner, the opposite corner, and pull that mud out of the corner. And you'll see when I start finishing what happens when you put that mud down there. It puts it right where you need it to be, rather than putting it on the blade and you're putting it kind of everywhere. So you want it towards the inside of the corner. You don't really need it on the outside. It's going to smooth its way outside anyways, so it's not that big a deal. That's a high. This is a low. I do low mostly. I don't do a lot of cornering my mud on the high side. I don't know why. I think it's just harder. I'm right-handed, so this is me running these angles, and you can see there's a gap side, so I'm going to put it in that high side first, the side that's going to bury, and then I'm going to hit the gap side second. And this is the first technique I really want you to pay attention to. There's a lot of techniques. That's why this video is kind of long, just for angles, because there's a ton of technique when it goes into finishing angles. So you're going to do your high side first, the side that goes behind the drywall, and then you're going to do your gap side, because there's normally going to be a little gap. Sometimes there's going to be a big gap, and I'll show you that too in this video. So I filled that gap side and my high side. I'm laying my tape in here. Not much really technique goes into that. Just make sure your perforation is on the inside. So your tape has a perforation on it, and you want that inside. It'll be pretty obvious the way you want it to go. You want that perforation, the indent, to fold in, to crease in, and it does it naturally. So like I said, it's pretty obvious, but stuff you learn. You don't want to do it the other way. People say it's no big deal, but in reality, it is a deal. In fact, people tear the tape off the wall in order to do it right. Here's me running another angle. Again, fill that high side first, and then fill your gap side, just like I did it right there. High side first, then fill your gap. The reason you do this is so that the mud can adhere to the other side of the mud, because if there's nothing there, it's not going to adhere to the empty gap. So the mud essentially attaches to the other mud. It's a little trick, because you're going to have gaps. You're going to have gaps on your angles, whether you like it or not. I mean, we can only get the board so tight. So I actually don't have any drywall videos of hanging, but show some support, more to come, I'm sure. So like I said, I'm doing a lot of videos here, and you see there's a little gap right there. I'm going to fill that in a second. There's a lot of videos of me just taping here. It's about 8 minutes or so of me taping, and I'm putting them there because, like I said, there's a lot of technique that goes into this. You guys should just definitely watch them and watch how I do it, because there's a lot that goes into watching it too. That's how I learned a lot of what I do, is just watching other guys do it. Make sure you're filling all your gaps. Don't leave any pockets of air anywhere. Smooth it out. Smooth your gap side first. So it's the opposite of when you're putting it on. When you're smoothing it out, smooth that gap side out first, and that's because you're going to define where that angle is. And if you define your high side first, you can easily push your tape up into the corner, and it kind of goes too high, and it won't create a proper angle. It's not unfixable. It's just technique. It finishes better, so that's why you do that. So here we go with another one. Like I said, I'm going to show a couple of these. There's a lot that goes into watching these, so the visual cues that you learn from this can go a long way, believe it or not. And if you are confused, sometimes it's best just to try to do what I'm doing and just try to replicate it some and work on it. It takes a lot of time to develop these techniques. So I'm doing my high side, now my gap side. Like I said, I like to reiterate that point because it's important. I know people that have been in this business a long time, they still leave gaps in their corners, and they're like, well, no big deal. Well, yeah, it isn't a big deal tomorrow, but down the line, it eventually will crack that tape. Yeah, so you don't want that. Nobody wants cracked tape. Even 5 years down the line, I don't want cracked tape 5 years down the line for something that you can fix right here and right now. I'm always better safe than sorry. So laying that tape in, just kind of, seat it in there. Don't try to hammer it into the corner. We're going to smooth out that gap side first. Smooth out that gap side first. And I'm cocking that knife just a little bit in to push that mud into the gap. I don't want to push it. I don't want to take too much mud off the tape either. I want to leave a little bit there. But you don't want to leave very much. You don't really, it shouldn't be, it's really just negligible. Just enough to adhere the tape. So it should be pretty smooth. You don't want any bumps or anything or any pockets. You don't want any pockets of air. You don't want any pockets of mud. That goes for all taping. That also goes for corner bead. It's important. Definitely no air. You don't want pockets of mud either. This is a big gap. You can see this gap is really wide. That was the hangers. They left that for me. I didn't hang this. I do hang, but I didn't hang this. So I'm going to flat tape it first, and then I'm going to angle tape it. I'm going to do it all at once. It's a small gap, or it's a small angle here, but I wanted to just show this off because a lot of people definitely need this technique to fix a lot of stuff, especially if you're DIYing. If you're doing this yourself, you are going to have some gaps. No big deal. I commend anybody that wants to do it themselves. Go right ahead. Fill your gaps, though. Here we go. Boom. I flat taped it, and now I'm going to go ahead and run that, and I'm going to angle tape it. I do a couple passes on my mud to smooth it all out, to make sure that that mud is all there. There's no dry spots. You don't want any dry spots on your tape either. So it's a delicate balance. It's not how much mud you put on, it's how much you take off. And you need to make sure there's enough there to adhere that tape. This is all-purpose mud I'm using to tape. I use all-purpose mud to tape. I use usually I'm using either plus 3 or Proform Lightweight to skim. Here's a video of me skimming angles. This is the second coat essentially, and this video is a few minutes here of me doing this, and I'm gonna show you a couple techniques here. A lot of it's just cornering your mud, putting it on, getting yourself a nice solid straight line. You want to feather that edge, then you want to run this right here. You're kind of taking off that mud on the other side just with the end of your blade, and then you're flushing it out here. Flushing it smooth, and then wiping off anything I see that's ugly. And I'm going to run this opposite angle here. That's a technique you'll hear about a lot if you're running angles, is doing opposite angles. You don't want to run mud that's going to go into another angle that you've just finished. So I'm going to run the top of this. I ran the side of that, and when I come back to when I hit the other side, I'm going to run the side of that. So like I said, these are all, this is all pretty basic stuff. This is like intermediate finishing. If you're on where you've done it some, but you're really kind of struggling with some technique, this is where you're going to learn some of the basic techniques here. I'm not a master finisher per se. I've been in the business for almost 20 years. I've been doing this for 15. I've learned a lot, and there's a lot of technique that goes into it. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort. So don't beat yourself up too bad. Just get out there and just keep doing it, and keep hitting it, man. Keep watching them videos. You know what I mean? So I'm feathering this edge. I'm going to slick it out right here. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, I'm going to slick it out one more time. Maybe it's not perfect. Also, nothing is going to be perfect in drywall. I tell people this all the time. We don't use the word perfect. Here's running the opposite angle. Boom. That's the opposite. So I'm not going to I'm not running into either angle I just finished. I'm going to wipe that corner. I'm going to feather it out, and I'm going to smooth it out. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And you can see they kind of mirror each other. Both are on this side. And it's pretty cool because if you look at the opposite wall, that will mirror your angles on the opposite side. So on the opposite wall over there, you're going to have the top angle to do. You're going to have the angle that mirrors this corner, and you'll have that wall you'll be doing that wall on the lower side. Running opposite angles takes time to just wrap your mind around, but take time and just make sure you're doing it right, and you won't have an issue. It's not super complicated. So I think I'm going to do one more angle right here before I switch over to the final coat. There's not a lot on the final coat. It's kind of the same thing as I'm doing here. Make sure when you're doing your final coat, I'm not there yet, but skipping ahead a little bit here, that all your angles are dry. Not mostly dry, not some dry. You want them all the way dry to get nice, slick, solid corners, because if not, they're going to dig in. You don't want them to dig in. It's more sanding, it looks bad, it's more work, it takes more time, takes more technique, more of a steadier hand. Just let things dry. I mean, you're putting 3 coats on everything. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is this drywall, so it's not a big deal. See, that angle is the same angle as the other side, as the other one I just did. All 3 of them are. It's because they mirror each other. And then this one is going to be, this next one I'm going to cut away from is the lower angle. And you can see none of them run into each other, any of the angles that I just finished. Okay, this is the last part of this video. I'm running my final angle here. The other side's already been done. Like I said, it's pretty much the same technique. You're gonna corner that mud, you're gonna put it on, and you're gonna smooth it out. And I want to run it back into it. I'm gonna feather it right here, and then I'm gonna wipe my top corner down, right like that. And you see that I cocked that knife just a little bit to wipe that out, so I don't dig into the finish that I just made. And I'm coming back on this to go back into the mud. I should have been going counterclockwise here. I actually went clockwise, so I'm gonna do this little swoop right there. And that technique right there is, it's shunned a little bit because you don't want to go back into your mud, but you have to have a soft touch on that. And I do, so you don't see it. And anything you do see, you can sand out. It's just a little bit more work, a little bit more sanding. But like I said, you know, some of these techniques are not advanced techniques. These are intermediate techniques that you're going to learn and get good at before you work your way to the best of the best. Master finishing techniques, not necessary. I don't do a lot of level 5 finishing. People talk a lot about level 5. I don't even want to hear it. Like, most of the time, nobody's getting level 5 in their house. Everybody's getting a level 3, and level 3 leaves flaws, but there shouldn't be many, and it shouldn't be anything obvious. So yeah, so I'm doing the same thing here. I corner that mud on, I feather the edge, I take my outside corner off, and then I smooth it out. If it's not smooth the first time, I might feather it again and then wipe it again. But normally it goes pretty much in that order. I'm going to do one more here for you, I think, and that will be the video. Like I said, if you are struggling with these techniques, leave a comment down below. I'll make another video, and I'll try to make it a little bit clearer. Maybe give it a little. Maybe I'll shoot another video for you. I do all this off my GoPro, so not the best angles here. I don't have the best staging or the lighting, but I'm trying to give you exactly what I see when I'm doing it, and from my perspective. So, and watching these videos will make a huge difference. Just the visual cues that you can learn from the videos do a lot. That's a lot of where I learned how to first start finishing, was visible cues on the people that I worked with, watching them, because I definitely didn't start painting mud on the wall. I started helping people mixing mud, doing things like that, being a helper of some kind, hitting screws, things like that. So I just want to say good luck with everybody. When I sand these things too, I'm always using a block. It's basic stuff. Just sand out your corner and go.